There is a pandemic of cowardice that is leading people to censor themselves and abandon their values in the face of cancel culture. According to Zuby, an independent rapper and author, we speak with Zuby about how this system of control works, how it is controlling society, and how to break free. Hey, Zuby, thanks for being on Crossroads.
No doubt, man. Happy to be here.
Now Zuby, I would say that the conflict America has right now is really twofold. When it comes to, I think, this rise in socialism, what it has always represented partly is really a war against traditional values. You can go back to Marx and communism, and that's really what he was talking about, the redefining of like human nature and human culture. I would say that guys like you're kind of at the forefront of this culture war in a lot of sense, and speaking out against the craziness coming out, the transgenderism you're on a lot, talking about lies in the media, ridiculousness of the mandates. It really, at its heart, I think, is a culture war. What would you tell people what it's like facing this and facing hit pieces and facing attacks, but holding your ground?
It's a lot easier than people think it is. I think a lot of people shy away from all of this, and that's why it continues to get worse. One of the things I hear so often from people is, the world's gone crazy. Why is the world gone crazy? Suddenly, I've woken up and it seems like people have lost their mind. Why has it gone so far? How's this happened? It's happened because most people have let it happen.
That's deep.
It's happened because most people have let it happen. People don't like this when I say this. People don't like it when I say that we have a pandemic of cowardice, because nobody likes to see themselves as a coward. Everyone wants to think that they are brave and they are courageous and, they're fighting the fight, but most people aren't. Most people are not being censored by the government or even censored by big tech or censored by social media. They're being censored by themselves. They're censoring themselves. Yeah, and in my country, the UK, in the USA, in Canada, across the entire Anglosphere, across many parts of the Western world, over the past 10 years, we have had this pandemic of cowardice, and people are unwilling to say things in many cases that are objectively true. Everyone knows what a man is. Everyone knows what a woman is. There's no one who doesn't know. There's people who pretend they don't. There's people who know but are afraid to say the answer. And why is that? Yes, they are afraid of repercussions, but just like cowardice is a habit, courage is also a habit, and both of them are contagious. When people around you start acting like cowards, it can affect you and cause other people to behave that way. When one person stands up, starts speaking out and using their platform to either state their opinions or to state objective facts, it encourages other people to do the same. I know for a fact that I have encouraged thousands, if not millions of people out there in this world to be a little bit more bold, a little bit more courageous. I'm not talking about being a radical or pushing anything sort of extreme. I'm talking about common sense. I'm talking about simply being willing to say what you believe to be true, say what is true, have conversations, have debates, have discussions, stand up and say no when someone is trying to force something on you that you don't want to go along with, whether it's a mask mandate or it's a vax mandate, or it's trying to force you to call people by made up pronouns, or it's to do this or to do that. If you're not on board with it, you can say no. You don't have to go along with all the nonsense. And if you do, that's how you get to where we are now. It's not simply because of activists. It only works in the face when people refuse to stand up.
That's right.
That's where it is. So my message is, I don't want to sound like I'm outright chastising people here. Maybe I am to some degree. But this has been going on for years and years and years. And actually it's declining. It's getting worse. And so more people need to be bold and take a stand. I've said to people, you can't outsource your courage, right? You can take inspiration from people and other people can motivate you to be a bit more emboldened. But ultimately, it comes down to each individual and their circle of influence. And if people are concerned about the direction the USA is heading, then the sane people in this country, and most Americans are sanes, right? Most Americans are not on board with the most extreme and radical and bizarre notions that are floating around out there, whether it's women having penises or men menstruating and giving birth or whatever other nonsense is going on out there. Over 90% of people don't believe that. But those people need to be willing to say something. Otherwise, a silent majority is weak when faced with a vocal minority.
Well, and that's what people talk about, that there really is a silent majority.
It's not helpful.
But how long does that majority need to remain silent?
A silent majority may as well not exist. Silent majority is the biggest cope in the world. People like saying silent majority because it makes them think, oh, we'll somehow by magic, we're somehow going to how can you win a fight? You don't fight. Yeah. How can you win a debate when you don't speak? You could have a debate and one person's just spouting off the goofiest, most ludicrous ideas. And if you just sit there,
I think they are. Right?
Yeah, and if you just sit there silently and nod, then they win the debate. If you go into a boxing ring with your hands tied behind your back and you refuse to throw a punch or even block, they're going to beat you, even if they're a terrible opponent. So the silent majority doesn't matter, right? If the majority, here's one for you. Do we have a silent majority or a silenced majority? I think there's a silenced majority.
Yes.
Right? And as long as people stay silent, then that vocal minority doesn't matter if it's only 1% of the population. They are very vocal. They are very bold. They're not afraid to say their goofy opinions. So why should you be afraid to say your sane one?
That's deep. They're not afraid to say the craziest things I think I've ever heard in my life. Things I never thought I'd hear in my entire existence. Like the wackiest things you can possibly. You have guys talking about assassinating Supreme Court justices on Twitter, and the left doesn't care about it. You have guys talking about, there's no such thing as men and women on Twitter, and that people just stay silent on it.
Honestly,
right?
Okay, let's, I said we wouldn't get into the transgender thing, but what percentage of the world's population do you think believes that men can give birth?
Probably not many.
Around the globe, 8 billion people. What percent of people do you think believe that?
I'd say actually believe it. Maybe 2%, coerced to believe it, maybe 20%, I'd say.
20% globally, not just USA?
This is specifically an American, Canadian, and like a Western European issue.
So at a push, I'd say that's very liberal, but let's say 80%. Let's say 80% know that it's nonsense.
Yeah.
Right? How is that 20% winning?
Good point.
And you brought up, more interesting, that 20%, you brought in the 2%. Yeah. Right? That 2% is forcing the 20%, who's now forcing the 80%. Right? And I think this is a good example, as annoying and silly as this conversation can be. If we can't agree with the most basic aspects of objective reality and biology, then how can anything else even function? People can have all sorts of different opinions and ideas in this world. And it's part of what makes things interesting. But if someone is saying that, this table in front of us is navy blue. Okay. If I am insisting that this is yellow and I'm trying to force everyone else, it's not enough for me to believe it's yellow. I must force you to believe it's yellow. If you don't agree that this is yellow, you're now a bigot. You're now a bad guy. Maybe I even want to get the law involved to prosecute you until you say this tablecloth is yellow. And then I want you to go out and tell everyone else who can see it's blue to say, no, it's yellow. This is where we are now. It's not about tolerance. It's not about empathy. It's not about compassion. It's not about making room for people who perhaps do not typically fit into certain traditional roles. That's not what the discussion or debate is about. It's one of force and coercion.